Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to another episode of the USL show. We are so glad to be back. It was the busiest week ever in USL history. Someone in our Discord, Chrysios, did the math, and I think they said 52% of League Two and W League teams were in action, which I think the total is like there's almost 200 teams involved with both of those, which is crazy. So to all the admins out there, especially like Nicholas Murray, please take a nap. You deserve it. John, how you doing, man?
Doing good. I think I was out last week, so happy to be back. Happy to be talking USL after what was a really eventful week.
Ryan?
Yeah, I'm doing well. I got my lowest ever score on Immaculate Grid Baseball this past weekend of 68, which I was fairly proud of. But yeah, ready to talk a lot of USL tonight. And it was definitely the weekend to have LeBron check in on the league.
What an insane notification.
I know that he has the ties to Robbie Damrot, but just the idea that LeBron is like seeking out Loudoun United highlights is probably the funniest thing in the world.
I like to think that he has Zach Ryan posters on his house walls in Los Angeles.
He Taco Tuesday is followed up by just him like just bumping posters of Ryan. Vote for Ryan posters. Man, incredible. I also just think that weirdly enough, I think DC United's furious that they are no longer the affiliate of Loudoun because they're just like the one time LeBron's watching, we aren't involved anymore.
I mean, LeBron famously a big soccer guy, like big in what, Liverpool investor, I think is
Liverpool investor.
There we go.
Which, I mean, he's not even watching Benteke with DC United. So what does that say? I don't know.
I mean, that's Crystal Palace legend Christian Benteke.
Hey, I did love me some Christian Benteke. Did love me some Christian Benteke. Listen, it was a pretty standard week other than just all the matches happening. But it was a fairly just nothing crazy happened. But before we tell you about all the things that happened, I want to thank our wonderful, beautiful, amazing patrons: John Hunt, Frank Anthony, Aaron J, Christopher Cohn, Harry Austin, John Fuller, Michael Fuchs, Joshua Duder, Noah Telford, Alberto Aguilar, Jerry Churchman, Stephen Howard, Rion Lacara, Tim Knox, NF Reg 30, MOS, and Kunal Patel. NF Reg 30 gets me every time. I'll always get on a roll and I have no idea what to do. Thank you guys so much for supporting us. Every single cent of what you guys are giving us is going to help us get out to Oakland versus Sacramento and do our live show, which we'll talk about in a second. Which there is going to be some new merch on the way. We are excited about that. I will share more of that information to you guys later. It's not going to be a kit this time, so be on the lookout for that. And if you look right beside John's face, there's a Goals TV logo there, and that's where, yeah, you got it. Go there. All of our stuff's there. Kid season's there. For the glove of the game is there. We got some fun content. FB ref races. It's just like wiki races where you connect two people. For example, and we'll show this to you guys later. I'm going to have a mock video showing you guys how it works. You can connect guys like Colin Smith for Rhode Island to Lionel Messi, and who can do it in the least amount of clicks. So really fun concept, short form content. We think you're going to like it, but you can check out all sorts of stuff. MLS, a lot of USL stuff. They're making a real push over there. You can check out the Champions League. You can check out anything you want with Copa America and the Euros coming up. There's about to be a ton of content with that as well. So go check out Goals TV, our wonderful sponsors that are getting us out to Oakland. And speaking of Oakland, hey, CBS proper is going to be there for this Northern California Derby. I don't know if it actually has a name. This is something that I should know, but that's where they are going to, they're going to be there, and it's going to be really exciting. But we are still doing our pregame and postgame show at Oakland. We are going to be working. We are not going to be with CBS as of yet. Not, I'm not trying to hint anything. CBS, please. But
we're begging you.
but we will also be there. And I'm just saying we chose Oakland versus Sacramento first, so I just saying. But we're going to be out there. It's going to be a ton of fun. But CBS, they reshuffled some matches, which I know kind of got under some people's skin, but also Oakland versus Sacramento, especially with all the stuff that's going on with baseball, with Major League Baseball, this is becoming a very interesting matchup on and off the field when you kind of consider just some weird tensions going on between the two cities and two clubs that are pretty fun to watch.
Fun to watch, interesting clubs. You've got the Northern California aspect of it. Oakland kind of has a tendency to get chippy in these local rivalry games. Like we saw it with the Monterey game where they had a whole slew of red cards after the final whistle. I mean, I know I'm thrilled to just be able to experience it all, to get that environment, really see a high profile USL game in person. But it makes sense as something that's a showcase for the league because you've got a team like Sacramento. That's probably the class of the West. You've got the rivalry. Just going to be a great time overall and a really good product to put on television like that.
Yeah, and I think it's important with the league to, when they have these limited chances to be on national broadcasts such as CBS, is to basically put your best foot forward, and especially to do it on a Sunday afternoon where everyone in the country, there's at least a lack of sports going on at this time. It would be a really important moment for the league to have this matchup on display. And even then, you still have another CBS game following up on August 3rd between Detroit and Rhode Island as well.
Which that's going to be a blast to watch as well. Which we're going to talk a little Detroit, Rhode Island coming up soon. But the first fixture, the biggest thing for me with this one, I think it makes a lot of sense, is depending on how they want to set up the cameras, which I think CBS is going to have more ways of showing off the area. One thing that I think, because people kind of talk about, and I saw this before, like people are like, Oakland's venue isn't even that nice. Why don't they want to show that off? Depending on what angles CBS is able to get, that wall of people, you see it, especially with the Soul. We see pictures coming out with the Soul, like when they're with Oakland Soul, the W League team. That giant wall of people, yes, it doesn't surround the ground. That is one of the more intimidating sights I think you have in the USL, because they just go straight up. It is a proper wall of people. And if that thing is full for this match, I think that is one of the best products that the USL could put out there on, network television.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about the venues that are going to be on show. The game that was previously scheduled for CBS was Colorado Springs, Phoenix. You're getting Widener Field. You're getting one of those newer stadium projects. Having Oakland and having Detroit is much more of a cozy, like passionate lower leagues atmosphere. That's kind of the appeal of the league. So to start off your CBS broadcast life with Lou City, to get the highest production value, the nicest stadium, and then highlight the fact that there's a little bit more depth to this, like you've got the active fan experience, I think that's cool to see.
And I think it's important for a lot of these games on CBS to always be the highly attended games and to have those great crowds and atmospheres. And I think that's what people will mainly take away from seeing these broadcast games. And even then, you still have Colorado Springs having 2 CBS Sport Network games this season as well.
I think one of the big things that also draws you here, I'm wondering what kind of pool they're going to have with some of their owners. Like Marshawn Lynch is, pretty involved there. They have I think Marshawn Lynch bobblehead night coming out pretty soon,
Yeah.
which if they make that the CBS game and he's there himself, imagine, like we see stuff like that. I mean, I doubt Billy Joe Armstrong is going to be there, but what if he is? Like there's a lot of people.
But they've got like Jason Kidd, Gary Payton, like so many famous people. Yeah.
They can pull on so many people that even if they have just one or two there, imagine you're someone who's never watched the USL before and you're like, that's Marshawn Lynch and, Jason Kidd and Billy Joe Armstrong at a second division soccer match. That's instant intrigue.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of enough of that, because like obviously the real reason that they're there is because of us. I think everybody knows that. I'm super excited to see what we can do with that. There's a lot of fun content that's we're kind of planning with that, so be on the lookout. Let's talk about this move of Jake LaCava to San Antonio, and I want to. Well, no, I'm not. I'm going to follow this up. I'm going to let you guys talk about it first. It was something that caught a lot of people really off guard, and I'm intrigued to see what comes of it.
Yeah, like at 23 years old, having just signed a multi-year contract in Charleston this winter, I think everyone assumed Jake LaCava was going to be one of the big pieces for this Charleston organization going forward throughout the years, right? Like this is a guy who had 12 goals 1 year in Tampa Bay. He was a bright prospect with the Red Bull system before that. He had the profile as this inverted scoring winger that made a lot of sense within the Ben Pierman system. And I think what no one expected was the fact that Juan David Torres would come onto the scene for this battery team and be unbelievably good on the left. It really squeezed opportunities in a way where I think a lot of people expected LaCava to get those minutes. Those weren't available. He's somebody who needs game time. Like that's the reason he wasn't going to sit on an MLS bench. That's the reason he ended up back in Tampa Bay last year. This is somebody who needs to play. San Antonio clearly had the want to get him. And I think that's really the interesting thing. The fit there isn't perfect. San Antonio isn't a club that uses wingers like Jake LaCava in their system. Now, he's somebody who brings a lot of grit. He brings a ton of effort. But if you're using him in a wingback position, yes, he can do it, but that's not optimizing what made Jake LaCava so special in the first place. I don't know if Alan Marcina is thinking he's going to change formations. I don't know if he's just going to use LaCava as a pure striker, which could be interesting. There's just a lot on both sides of this. And just to circle back to Charleston, very little attacking depth right now. Like there's 3, 4 attacking midfielders, handful of guys that can play on the wing. They're going to need to add. Not sure about San Antonio. Just a lot of intrigue all over the place here.
Yeah, it's interesting coming from LaCava's perspective when you sign a player who's had his experience across just numerous different teams, such as his stints with the New York Red Bulls 2, Tampa Bay Rowdies. You would expect him to fit into this Charleston system like a glove, but when you only have 10 appearances with the Battery this year, 9 of them being subbed onto the pitch, it's really fighting for game time. And you would just want to see yourself as a player go to a system that you can actually get that game time and can actually play. You're going into a San Antonio squad who hasn't been the San Antonio team we're used to seeing of late, those mentality monsters. They're still hanging around the mid-part of the Western Conference playoff picture, but just 17 goals and 14 conceded this year. You're definitely looking for a player to try and kind of push yourselves over the line and really guarantee hosting that home playoff game. And especially from Charleston's perspective, they've now gone 2 consecutive matches in the league without a win. And I'm honestly thinking, at least heading into Pittsburgh this week, Detroit the following week, they need to kind of start turning around the pace because it still feels like they are having a U.S. Open Cup hangover.
Just real fast. The Dom Dwyer thing is interesting. I want to talk about some with the Oakland Roots blog, what Jonathan Como talked about later, but that's going to be right after this chat. With Jake LaCava, I just don't trust Marcina to even use him because he rolls out the same 11 or like 12 people and doesn't rotate, runs them into the ground until they're dead. Is the goal like see which striker winger dies first and then Jake, you're next? Like I don't know. Like, that's kind of all I have. The only thing that could kind of make sense is if they go back to this like 3-5-2 that they've done before with Agudelo being just like this big body up top and let Lakava run onto a ball flicked forward, just like what Agudelo be this like hold up player and just play Lakava through. But that doesn't feel like it really gets the most of him. Like, it doesn't make sense as a fit, like you mentioned tactically. And if you're Lakava, and maybe I'm just projecting too much. I'm also thinking like, yeah, Marcina only plays the same few people until they're dead. So at the worst, you're not going to, or at the best, you're not going to play all that much. At the worst, you're going to get used until your legs fall off. Like, it just doesn't feel like a good fit for not even just Jake Lakava, but really any player that's looking to go to San Antonio, if I'm being honest.
There's a certain brand of guy who really works there. You think about like Kendall Burks, who they just got from Chicago Fire 2, who's been unbelievable in the back line, or Lucas Silva at the wingback spot. Like, they know how to recruit defenders who really fit that system. And then when you get to the attack, it's constantly fitting square pegs into a round hole. I think what you said about Agudelo is interesting. To me, it increasingly seems like he's best used when he's dropping lower, not being a number 10, but kind of getting the ball in those positions to keep an offense flowing. That's kind of crowding out Jorge Hernandez at a certain point. It's meaning that Luke Hackinson isn't really activated in the spots where he's most impactful. You throw Lakava into that mix, I don't know how it necessarily helps, again, unless you're thinking about a proper shape change. I'm just so curious to see, like, what does this even look like in practice?
Maybe I don't watch enough San Antonio. But I almost, and I don't want to just throw this in, please, San Antonio fans, your team better than, well, specifically me. You know your team better than I do. So, like, if I'm wrong, tell me. But I'm starting to get the, like, Lowry feeling from Marcina of he has one system. And if he doesn't have players that perfectly fit that system, he's kind of a one-trick pony. Because there has to be changes here. Because the way that we're talking about this team is like, oh, the best way to get the most out of this player completely makes this other player in this system irrelevant. And it feels like no matter what you do with the lineup that's been put out week in and week out, yes, they just got to win over 901. I'm not going to discredit that. But it doesn't feel like this team has taken that next or has continued to grow after that championship, where they had the perfect team for what he wanted to do. The next year, they kind of ran it back with not the same pieces, and it didn't go as well. And this year, it's going even worse. And I feel like there hasn't been any real growth out of Marcina, except for they control the ball a little bit more. They're not just counterattack fiends, which even then that counterattack thing, like, they had the ball more often than their percentages really showed, to be honest. But like, it just feels like there hasn't been true growth in what this team actually is.
And you're seeing 9 players in the team right now who've made 9 starts or more this season. And if you look at the entire squad, there are 8 players who have started a match this year who just weren't subbed off at any point in those games, which is just absolutely wild for not having any sense of rotation. Luckily for San Antonio this week, you have an El Paso team that's still trying to find their footing and a Tulsa team that is, well, yikes. But if they get but like even getting past this week, then you run into a really tough stretch of games where you have to travel to both Indy 11 and Birmingham and then host New Mexico and Phoenix to get you to July 6th. It's like you're starting to like just wonder, is it going to work out for San Antonio?
And I do think there's something to be said for the fact that they've had a lot of injuries. They always have a lot of international absences. That hurts the rotation. And it really has hurt their ability to try and be more possessive. But this Memphis game, like, it was a win, but it was absolute classic Marcina ball. Like, they were getting away from that very keep it on the ground sort of mentality. they were getting away from what was supposed to be the change this year. And I get that it's going to be a slow process to try to build that new mentality. Getting Jake LaCava probably helps the cause relative to some of the more kind of bludgeon type attackers that are on this roster. But I don't know, just, yeah, things to question right now, given that so much of the West looks strong this year.
And, you know, like the chat comes in exactly what you were just saying, John. You know, San Antonio has a ton of key injuries. But I'm being really honest. When's the last time they haven't? Like, they started last season. Before the season started, they had half their team was injured. They started with, like, what was it, 14 players last season before they had to just do like a ton of 25-day contracts. And this year it's been a continuation. Like, that's not just bad luck. That is just a trend. That is something going on. And maybe it's not Marcina's fault, but something is going on there that's not working. And I don't know. I feel like you can use that excuse, but also at this point, that's not, I feel like it's not an excuse. It is truly, it's someone's fault.
Yeah. Like, we're a third of the way into this season and we've got years of track record for these San Antonio teams. Like, it's meaningful at this point that this keeps happening.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and move on. You know, we kind of mentioned this you know, the El Paso game that is going to be coming up somewhat soon. So let's go ahead and check out what El Paso has going on under Cabrera.
USL Tactics Show, where today I want to talk about El Paso and their transition into the Wilmer Cabrera era. What you're going to see here to start off is a clip from their win in Charleston. Yes, it came against 10 men, but there was a crucial change late in the game that saw El Paso basically put 3 central midfielders into the mix, moving Eric Calvillo to the number 10 spot and bringing Bolu Akanyode into the pivot. This move really highlights a lot of what went right for El Paso. They're able to get touches in the center of the pitch, activate Amando Moreno, while not on this specific play, but in dangerous areas more consistently than they ever did against Birmingham this weekend. You're going to see part of the issue here. El Paso is working wide. They're going to get some nice combination play, but with the lack of a Calvillo-like chaser in the 10 spot, somebody who's able to really work vertically, get up and down, and force a defense to break their shape, they simply weren't as able to generate dangerous chances. Birmingham was able to really figure out what they were doing offensively. Tumi Moshaban was the player in that 10 spot for most of the game, and while he was good, he created 3 chances. He didn't help the Locomotive get into the box with enough regularity. Often, because of that lack of interaction with the central midfield, you saw plays like this, where Justin Dillon had to be the man who came deep to get touches. That's fine in theory, but it leaves you without a striker in the box. Defensively, El Paso also struggled with that 2-man pivot. You're seeing spatial issues here between the 2 center mids. Moshaban isn't filling in as somebody like Bolu Akanyode would, and the result is the winning goal for Birmingham. Now, I'm not saying this is a disaster for El Paso, and I'm broadly bullish on what Wilmer Cabrera is doing, but there are clear changes that need to be made in terms of personnel for El Paso to get right.
John, I just want to just throw it out there because, like, we do have other topics I need to get to, but let's just talk a little bit about El Paso. I'm not doing the whole like conspiracy thing, but what in the world are coaches seeing in training to not say Bolu should be starting? Because every time he plays, he's like the best central midfielder in the league.
I feel like I'm brain dead that, like, both of us share this opinion. We've both had it for a long time. Like, he's kind of undroppable as a holding midfielder, very underrated as somebody who can really set the tempo on the ball, and he's not getting minutes. Like, what are we doing?
It just feels there has to be something here. I don't know what it is. I don't know. When I talked to Phil the other day on
great podcast.
Appreciate it. I talked about, I was like, man, Liam Rose is great, but I want Liam Rose to be working alongside Bolu. And I really like what Calvillo does, but I want that to be where Bolu is, or run all three, do something. I don't know what it is. Joaquin Rivas still hasn't gotten off the mark this year against El Paso, or I'm sorry, against Charleston. He was kind of dropping in deep a lot and made that 4-2-4 look more like a 4-3-3 at times. Like he was dropping in so deep that at that point, maybe you just drop in Bolu and, be like I'm going to try to think of the numbers off the top of my head, like a 4-1-2-3, which is basically just a defensive 4-3-3. But, let him truly stand on his own on an island and let Cavallo. Oh my gosh, how do I pronounce that name? That's not even right.
You had it earlier.
I know that was
Cavallo.
Weird. Yeah, dude, it's been a long day. And Liam Rose, and let them push up and let him just hold it down on his own because he has the talent to do it.
I think what'll be interesting with El Paso right now is that they are still without a win at home this season, and they have 10 games, home games left in the league schedule. Looking at some of their 10 home remaining opponents, I think there is a chance that they could go and not get over 3 wins at home the rest of the year. Luckily, they do have Miami visiting on August 10th, and they have Las Vegas on July 12th. But if you look at some of their other teams coming to town, it's certainly not the easiest stretch of games.
I think what's fascinating is that we've heard a lot about the 4-2-4. Cabrera's not really integrated that. It's been a very classic 4-4-2. They're not pressing especially high. It's kind of feeding into a lot of the issues right now. But again, I know I said it in the video, we've seen the potential. We know what this team is capable of. Cabrera has made the right changes at times. So, I'm trusting that they're going to get there eventually. And by the way, plug for Phil and the Seriously Loco crew who got to interview Wilmer Cabrera today. I haven't got a chance to listen yet, but very excited for that.
Always good stuff. We're going to go ahead and hit a little bit of Northern Colorado, and then we're going to go back to the championship. Northern Colorado gets a 2-1 win over Union Omaha, which that's huge because if you're only watching the League One standings, that feels like a world-shattering result for Union Omaha. But if you've been watching the Jaeger Cup, you know that this Northern Colorado team has been quickly turning it around. And with using Noah Powder as this right winger and then Bruno Rendon as this left winger, as opposed to just making them go as wing backs, has really forced this team to just be a force to be reckoned with, really. And yes, Union Omaha goes down to 10 men right before halftime. But this is still a really good defensively team out of Union Omaha. For Northern Colorado to get 2 goals out of it, I think it really shows that they've turned the corner.
I don't think there's a more exciting team for me right now than the Hailstorm across any level of the USL, honestly. The way that they've looked since they made the change with the wingers has been unbelievable, obviously. But I think it's the way that they're deploying almost everyone else in the squad. You're seeing Isidro Martinez, Cello get that higher positioning almost to make these striker-ish runs out of the number 10 spot. The way that they're kind of bending Jackson Dietrich over to the left side and allowing the left back to bomb higher. Ayman Zayed is coming out with some sort of wrinkle every single game that is making a huge difference. With the Omaha game in the second half, you took off Ethan Horde at striker. You let Bruno Rendon play striker. Guess who gets the winning goal on a breakaway using that pace? Bruno Rendon. And that's because Ayman Zayed had the confidence in himself, the confidence in his roster to make a really smart mid-game sub. I think that Northern Colorado was a team that we always knew was going to have the talent to really do a job in this league. Without a doubt, they're living up to that potential right now.
Yeah, you're looking at a Northern Colorado team who are unbeaten in their last 6 games or they've scored in their last 6 games across all competitions and unbeaten in their last 5. Just looking at the Group 3 standings alone, they're absolutely treating this competition seriously. They have 9 goals scored in this competition, which leads all teams in the cup right now, which is ever so important And just for the tiebreakers alone, looking at Northern Colorado, just across all games this season, they've been super exciting to watch going into this. And with having Fuego this weekend, it's a huge opportunity to really put a statement, Northern Colorado is back type of match to League One.
And there's a player that comes in off the bench, which is Billy King. And Billy King, who had 8 goals last year. And, if it wasn't for Trevor Amon, it would just be, he would be kind of the talk of NoCo. And I know people love him there, so that's not what I mean. But, there is just a lot of love for Billy King, but I think a lot of people got so wrapped up in what Trevor was doing that he lost some shine, and he gets that first goal, and it's really nice to see him back and rolling again. I think that was his first goal of the season, and I think that if this team is going to be real, getting Billy King off the mark, yes, knowing that you can get Rendon to move him from left wing up to striker at any given point. Also, don't forget, these guys were playing wingback. Powder and Rendon were playing wingback. So if you have to go defensively, if you need to see something out, they have that real flexibility to do it. It feels like they finally hit on something that can go through a lot of different passages of play throughout the game.
Yeah, and on the other side for Omaha, they were outplayed in the first half. I'm not going to pretend like this was their best outing, but it's really not a game you're going to be overly worried about. They were close to even with Northern Colorado. They were in the 4-2-3-1 in this one, for one thing. Misael Rodriguez on the left wing was giving you a lot, getting some good touches. I thought the use of Joe Gallardo in the number 10 spot was interesting. It was pretty clear that you wanted that speed in the middle of the park where he can really stretch and try to shut down what NoCo was doing in build. Didn't necessarily work, but I liked the change in concept. So yeah, good things to take away for Omaha. Like when you go down a man for 45 minutes, you're always going to be doomed. So nothing to be too upset about.
Kind of, and maybe I'm just thinking reminiscently, but a guy that comes off the bench for Omaha is kind of tie it back. What would San Antonio do with a guy like PC right now?
And he's the kind of guy who gives every team a level head. Clearly, he's always very measured, never puts in a harsh tackle or gets a dumb yellow card. So I think he'd be a really good fit right now.
Let's go ahead and move on. Indy's flying, man. Indy, and I put it out on socials and kind of a mixed reaction. But ever since MLS was allegedly announced, Indy cannot stop winning. And something I mentioned on Soccer Down Here, one thing I loved that Indy did, and hey, this is to all clubs. If you want good content, let your content people get involved in those intimate spaces. Like, don't just shut the doors on them and then say, I want good content on the socials. When Indy, the first game that they had back, like they let the cameras in, coaches were telling them like this game means more to the fans than it means to you. This is the most important game of the season because of what's going on off the field. Like this game is for the club. This game is not for you. And clearly that message has continued. And Indy is hitting a stride that since joining the USL, I genuinely cannot remember a time that they have played this well. I'm sure Ryan can pull something up on their results, but the vibes in terms of how they're just dominating teams, this is something I can't remember since they were in ASL. And I love what I'm watching here out of Indy. As for last week, when we kind of skipped over 901 versus Pittsburgh, there's a bit of a Pittsburgh effect right now of, lads, it's Pittsburgh. You should get a result. And we can talk a little bit on that as well. But really the main point here is that Indy's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, for me, this is the best Indy has played since the NASL spring season where they took home the spring title with Eamon Zayed as the striker for that team. How they're looking right now is simply unbelievable. a lot of it is obviously predicated on that switch into the back three. The way that everyone in that unit, Ben Ofemu, Adrian Dispay, and Josh O'Brien in the middle have played during this run has been immense. A lot of the times it's been that ability to maraud forward. Like, you're getting those later arriving plays from Ofemu and Dispay in the wider spots. It's something that can really give you an overload in the half spaces in a meaningful manner. Against Pittsburgh, in a game where you got an early lead, and pretty uncharacteristically, Indy had to play on the back foot. What they were doing defensively, it's just simply hard to exaggerate how good they were, limiting the shot quality for the Riverhounds. And I do want to say, like, Pittsburgh probably deserved to at least get a point from this one. I thought the attack looked good. I thought Bob Lilly came in very smart strategically. But Indy is quickly becoming the sort of team that's good enough to win those games. Like, they can go in, they can get a goal. They have the players who can create something out of nothing. I don't think any of us anticipated, like, Aiden Stanley would be arguably the best creator in the league, but he's doing that right now. I don't know. I have the rose-colored glasses to a certain extent, but this Indy team is really, really, really getting me excited.
And Nicholas Murray puts in chat that this is their longest ever win streak since they've joined the USL Championship. It's their longest unbeaten run since the 2019 season, when they had at the start of the year a 10-match unbeaten streak. And that was a 2019 season that saw Indy 11 end in the Eastern Conference Final to it. And there was even a separate 9-match unbeaten streak in the 2018 season when they were in USL as well. This is an Indy 11 team who scored in every single match that they've played in league play this season. They still have an Open Cup run that's ongoing at the moment, and it's a really fun Indy 11 team that, if you're not watching any of these games, they're a blast to watch. I mean, just looking back through their last 4, you've seen both teams find the back of the net, and well over 2.5 goals from all of them.
Nicholas Murray puts in there, Ben Ofemu is going to be a transfer, or is going to be a candidate for transfer this season. Ben Ofemu is someone whom I think has been chronically misused in his time since coming out of Bethlehem still. And with Birmingham, he just didn't get the time that he really needed to shine. In Miami, well, frankly, it was Miami, and I kind of hate to say it, but like, they had the right players there, but nothing seemed to work. Ben is also just, he fits what this team wants to do so well. And I think that he's really opening up guys like Aiden Stanley. He's really letting him do what he needs to do. Cam Lindley hasn't looked this solid, and he's always, Cam Lindley for this Indy 11 team is almost always the best player on the pitch. I need to make that very clear. But since the addition of Ofemu, he just looks even more confident on the ball, because if he makes a mistake, he has been behind him. And it's really let this team really flow, really do what it needs to do. One thing for Pittsburgh that I did like, they have this kind of 4-3 or 3-4-3 that they kind of did, like, where they had kind of Robbie Mertz playing almost shadow striker-ish. Yeah. And I think it's going to be the way forward. I really, really do. I think that if you can really open up Kazai Sterling and let him do his magic, I'm not really sold on Kiza right now with this team, with what I'm seeing off the bench. And again, this is something that, John, you've kind of called me out for with Bryce Jamison. We're getting there. Fast guy off the bench. He's obviously going to look good, but it also feels like Emmanuel Johnson may be a better fit for what they're trying to do with Robbie Mertz, kind of playing that deeper role and trying to unlock those two.
Yeah, I mean, the balance up top is kind of always been the struggle of this season, trying to replace Dikwa. There was that game in Phoenix where Kiza looked like a man possessed, and you really thought, okay, this is it. We finally found the guy who, in classic Lily fashion, is going to step up and kind of make something out of nothing. It's clear that it's not going to be that easy. Sterling really has struggled amidst the change in style. Like, Pittsburgh is such a different offensive team than Tormenta ever was. The service he's getting comes with such a different rhythm that it's just hard for him to find the same reads that he did with South Georgia. And I think you hit the nail on the head with the deployment of Mertz. Like, we're seeing him basically become a third forward quite often. We're also seeing some manipulation of the back line where Sean Suber on that right side is pushing up quite high in possession. I like that Lilly keeps experimenting. I like that he's never someone to rest on his laurels. Everybody knows that. But the fact that he really is trying to innovate and figure out, okay, I've got a deep roster. I'm going to figure out how these pieces fit together. That's promising to see. And I trust that Pittsburgh's going to figure out where they need to be.
And it certainly seems like Pittsburgh is going to kind of be on the outside of the home playoff picture, kind of looking. And I mean, they're already 9 points off of the fourth place right now. They're even just 4 points off of seventh. And just looking at some of their games that are coming up ahead, I mean, over the next three games they have in the league, you have Charleston away and Louisville at home with a Hartford match sandwiched in between. And that's a really tough stretch of games to have to do Indy 11, Charleston, and Louisville 3 out of 4 games played.
Let's go ahead and move on. And I want to go ahead and go out west where Orange County finally break the skid. Like, it just felt like things were getting kind of hopeless for Orange County. They have a thrilling win over Detroit City, who they're starting to get the same feelings that Orange County had. And it's really, this was kind of a match of who can write the season, because Detroit City, there was a while where I was like, they may never lose. They look just, unbeatable. A couple of injuries happened. They've had to reshape the lineup a little bit, and clearly they weren't prepared for anything to happen to do that, right? As for Orange County, Ryan Flood seems like a great addition. Yeah. I was wondering why in the world would they bring him in? This makes no sense. I get it now. Good job, Orange County scouting department. You're smarter than me. Who would have thunk? From there, I mean, just goals from everywhere. You get Scott, you get Among, you get Bryce Jamison, whom, he comes off the bench and is just a spark of lightning. If you're Detroit City, you're saying, Jop got a goal, Stephen Carroll got a goal. But those are 2 goals from, Carroll's your center back and Jop is kind of a part of a double pivot. You don't expect goals from those places. And the questions we had at the beginning of the season for Detroit of where are the goals coming from consistently, they're kind of back.
I want to start out with the credit for Orange County, certainly. Like, you hit it on the head with Flood. What a testament to the fact that this team is so good at player acquisition. Really, the fact that Dogman has been in and out of the squad with injuries, they've had to move Ashish Chadha from the central midfield over to that spot. I think I've undersold how much that limited them offensively. Like, if you were an opposing team, you didn't have to respect the wide threat, really, and that had knock-on effects all over the pitch. With Flood doing what he does on the left side, knocking in the crosses, overlapping, asking questions, that freed up Kyle Scott to get more room in the half space. That left Jeff All to get more touches in important areas. Orange County felt like they had an offensive flow that we've not seen for most of the year. I want to shout out Thomas Among, not only for the goal, but for the pressing effort as well. He never gave Detroit a second when they were trying to keep possession around halfway. We saw it most notably ahead of the Jamison goal, where he kind of back presses somebody, wins the ball, and leads that break. But he was immense all night. And that kind of encapsulated why I don't feel good about this game whatsoever for Detroit City. There were a lot of structural issues for them, first and foremost, but the drive and effort almost felt like a half step off for me in a way. And some of that comes down to the fact that they just got slated by Lou City at midweek, then had to go halfway across the country. Like, that's never going to be easy for anybody. But the way they set up the squad, leaving so much room in that single pivot defensively, the way that really Bryant and Carroll had pretty terrible games defensively in recovery. Not what you want to see for the players that have been the core of this team for so many years. Like, these are guys that you, through thick and thin, have been able to rely on. If you're not getting those performances, you don't have the platform to build through Ali Coot. Whenever Elvis Amo is back, he's not going to be as free because you have questions at the back and you're going to need to commit resources to patch over them. I don't want to put the cart ahead of the horse and say like alarm bells are ringing for Detroit, but I think this week was a wake-up call that there's some process left to go for the Dickey Revolution there.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting situation that Detroit finds themselves in. No win in their last 5, and they've quickly tumbled down out of what we thought were going to be like almost sure that they're going to be hosting a home playoff game to now they find themselves currently 6th in the table and just only ahead of Loudoun on tiebreakers at the moment. And you look back from last season, you see a Detroit team go 8 without a win, including 6 in a row without scoring a goal. You worry about having that knock-on effect where just these results continue to just pile up one after the other. And I get last week was already a very difficult week for Detroit, having that 4-goal defeat to Louisville and then having to fly across the country. They'll then have another road match again at Rhode Island before they have to play Charleston and Birmingham back-to-back at home. So it's certainly one that they need to start finding a way to improve upon these results quickly, or else they're going to find themselves kind of back on the playoff bubble. But credit to Orange County for this result. It was a match that had halted a 3-match losing skid, and now they have 3 consecutive road games with Phoenix, Colorado Springs, and Indy 11. The latter 2 are 2 of the more hotter teams in the league right now. But what I thought was interesting was within this match, Orange County was able to continue a streak that they've held since July 30th, 2022, where every time they've scored multiple goals in a match, they have yet to lose.
One thing with Detroit City, maybe this just isn't fair, and I also just have to. It's one of the things, and this isn't. Okay, back up. I don't understand kind of what they're doing tactically. Michael Bryant is a center back. I think of him as center back. He can play right back, but he's definitely more on the defensive side of that. You also have Matt Sheldon, who is also that, right? And, when you have Brett Levis, who is, I think he's hurt. When you bring in Villanueva after that, Villanueva's fine, but I don't even know what his best role is, because Orange County were like, you're a left back, you're a center midfielder, maybe you're a striker.
Which is why he's no longer an Orange County player.
Yes. The thing is that there's a lot of confusion on this, in the wing back areas, and I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure what they're planning to do, because they're not getting a whole lot of service from those wide areas. And that, to me, that's what I felt like was giving them so much success earlier on this season. I wonder if maybe there's a world where they can do what they did before, which was, oh my gosh, what's his name? Connor Rutz. Putting him over on that right-hand side like a wing back. They did it a little bit last year, and having Michael Bryant sit in as a third center back again. And maybe that'll let things flow a little bit better on those wing back positions. But also don't really know who you drop, because the midfield feels set and you can't drop a striker. I don't really know what you do.
You got to hope Reese Williams comes back and gets to that form he was in early in the year and can hold down the right back spot. I just worry that teams have kind of figured out how to break down Detroit, and I worry that the defense has possibly lost a step. I wrote about it today, but Nate Steinwasser quietly having a kind of bad season statistically. Like, he is solidly below average right now in terms of his goals saved above expected. There have been certain games, especially early in the year, where he stood on his head and he, without a doubt, got Detroit 2-3 points. But he's not doing that right now, and it's kind of exposing a lot of the other things.
I mean, North Carolina's conceded fewer goals than Detroit right now.
I mean, North Carolina's been defensively solid all year. They just couldn't figure out how to put the ball in the back of the net.
Yeah, North Carolina was kind of designed to play the most boring soccer in the USL for a minute there.
Yeah.
Sean Dyche would be proud.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing against John Bradford, but when your coach's name is John Bradford, you are the most boring team known to man.
And I mean, hey, if you're effectively an expansion team trying to get used to a new league, do that. That's smart. You're getting points for that.
Getting a lot of points for that. I still love that roster construction. Let's go ahead and stay out west, but go up north because the Indomitable have been dominated for the first time. Tampa Bay go into Sacramento and get all 3 points. Gutsy performance out of Tampa Bay. Sacramento are still kind of reeling from 2 major injuries between Cicerone and Roro. And while they have the depth, clearly they were not prepared for what life after really either one of them would be like. The attack to me feels a little bit toothless. I say that Kieran Phillips is also a freak. But outside that, like, it feels a little toothless. And defensively, they're solid, but when you're having to just withstand the pressure of what Tampa Bay can do to you, and you don't have the defense or you don't have the attack to back it up, eventually you're going to leak one in.
Sacramento's entire setup in this game was kind of fascinating. We saw the 3-5-2 even before Roro went down. It makes more sense now, just given what they need. Like 3 midfielders instead of 4 makes a lot of sense. But Jared Timmer playing as the number 6 in that setup was a very conservative decision for a Republic team that never makes conservative decisions. Like, their bread and butter is trying to be proactive, beat you because they're doing something that forces you to react. Putting Timmer in that spot was very clearly designed to say, listen, we need somebody who's going to stop Cal Jennings from getting the ball in between the lines. They didn't really do that. And Tampa Bay didn't even have Manuel Arriaga. Like, they were playing Charlie Dennis as that other central striker. And I mean, shout out to Dennis, who had an incredible game in a role that isn't his natural role. But that's a failing tactically of Sacramento to make that call and not have it pay off. And then you have the knock-on effect that while Timmer is a good passer for a center back, he doesn't give you the distribution of Roro in that spot. He doesn't give you what Nick Ross would give you in that spot. So suddenly you've hamstrung yourself in possession. You're only able to work around the edges of the Tampa Bay press. And the Rowdies just took control of the game. That's kind of a common theme for a Rowdies team that secretly might be the best team in the league right now. Like, I don't know if that's a hot take, but I think Tampa Bay is playing unbelievable soccer. They played their game. Sacramento didn't. I'm curious to see when the Republic maybe start to bring in some of those bench players more often. Like, why are Christian Pirano and Jonathan Ricketts not getting starts when you clearly have gone off the path a little bit? These are guys who have performed at nearly all league levels at other stops over the years. They can give you something. They can give you a new look. Like, this whole era of Republic soccer started because Mark Briggs was bold enough to abandon the back 4, go with the back 5, and he's used it for 2 years. He shouldn't be afraid to kind of mix it up once again.
Yeah, and I think what's incredibly interesting within these past 2 games that Sacramento have played is that formerly basically a stadium that is usually a fortress for them, they've now gone 2 consecutive matches at home without scoring a goal. They haven't scored a goal in their past 2 games for the first time since September 2023. I mean, that's an Avengers in-game level of time that they've spent without finding a goal in the back of the net. I'm trying to go back through previous results, and this might be among the first times that they've gone back-to-back home games without finding the back of the net.
This is on topic, off topic. If you're someone who frequents FB ref, reference, football reference, I notice that every time I look at Sacramento, Nick Ross has to have one of the most brutal profile pictures on there. It's bad. Nick, you gotta talk to somebody, man. Like but you mentioned it, like, especially for me, like Jonathan Ricketts feels like someone who needs to be on the pitch for them. And you mentioned Timmer, yes, he is a really good passer, but they are playing just a 4 center back setup. They're just not getting forward like they should. And I understand the want to shut down Cal Jennings. I really do understand that. That's everybody kind of looks at this team, especially if Arteaga's in there. You're like, how do you slow this down? And I understand that, they don't know who's in and who's out before the lineups, announced, right? You're assuming that you're going against Arteaga and Jennings and, you're having to deal with all of that. But you also have to, I think if you're Sacramento, there's a bit of you that has to remember there's Lee Desmond, there's Connor Donovan, and Shane White. Like, those guys are still behind you. Trust them. That is one of the best back threes that you could ever dream of in this league. And, to go extra conservative, especially at home, I just don't really understand the thought process. To those two guys, let's just assume that Arteaga was on the pitch. Let's just make that assumption. I still think that if you're Sacramento, you should back yourself with your 3 guys to go against those two. Will it be hard? Obviously, but I still think you back yourself.
It's interesting too when you think about it offensively. Like, the Republic's best plays this season have come when Lee Desmond especially has had the freedom to go forward with the ball and really wreak havoc. You didn't get that against Tampa Bay, probably by design, and it had an impact.
I just wonder what the plan is for this team. And, like, there's a lot of things that I know that they are trying to work on with the Sacramento team that's supposed to fill a lot of these holes. But when you're looking at the immediate future, what are you going to do? Because, I mean, you're looking at Monterey Bay, who we aren't really talking about tonight, but, they are once again kind of figuring things out again. They've shown glimpses. They did it early. They are starting to do it again. You're looking at the Roots, which is coming up very, very soon. Hashtag ad. That's another tough game that Oakland is going to show up for. Really, you're just hoping that you make it to Tulsa, your get right game, and move on from there. Which, do we have enough time to just talk about what Tulsa is? Because
we should hold off a little bit more on this.
Okay, because we'll save it. Yeah, because I just want to throw it out there.
They did look terrible, but
they looked awful. If you're Arthur Rodgers and you came in expecting a certain project and you're getting this, how mad are you right now?
Isn't he? He's been hurt too. Like, that just must be miserable.
Yeah, poor Arthur. Yeah, let's go ahead and move on to some matches to predict, though. Let's go ahead and go to Memphis versus Colorado Springs. A Memphis team who did not get a result in their most recent time out against San Antonio. But you're also now looking at Colorado Springs, which I've mentioned several times, have figured it out when I did not think it was possible for them to, and they are consistently shutting me up. So is Memphis going to bounce back, or is Colorado Springs going to continue to make me eat crow?
Yeah, I mean, I thought Memphis outplayed San Antonio. Like, I'll just throw it out there that they were the better team in that game. Meanwhile, like, Colorado Springs kind of had a tough time holding it together, holding off Oakland. Neither of these teams, I don't know. I don't know if either of them is really like a true contender, but they're both on the cusp. I think it's going to be a real test of Memphis's attacking unit for sure. Like, can Marlon actually do it against a team as well organized as the Switchbacks tend to be? And a Switchback team that's very good about winning second balls, defending against the knockdowns that so often kind of give Memphis their charge. I've got this one ending in a draw, but I think it's going to say a lot about whoever ends up getting the result.
Yeah, the winner of this match will find themselves as high as possibly third in the Western Conference this year, level on points with Monterey Bay, depending on other results going their way. If you're looking at just some of the odds right now, Colorado Springs is actually a rather sizable underdog to Memphis for this one. I think largely chalked up to Memphis hosting this one. Interestingly enough, games hosted by Memphis this year have yet to end in a draw. And Colorado Springs still have yet to beat Memphis in a game in their all-time series meetings. I have this game ending, actually, as it turns out, in a draw as well to get the first one in Memphis. But I think it could be a very exciting match to watch.
I'm believing in what Memphis is doing offensively. I think that the winning streak for Colorado Springs does come to an end. I think just what Memphis provides, I think this being at home, I think it's going to fit right into Memphis's hands. So I am going to take 9-0-1. Next up, one of the more intriguing matchups of the season, which preseason would not have said that, which is Birmingham versus Indy. Birmingham, who has figured it out defensively and, has this most recent match finally figured out their shooting boots a little bit versus an Indy 11 team, which we've been talking about a lot today of just being incredibly hot and just refusing to lose.
Yeah, I mean, if you had told me in the preseason that Birmingham and Indy would be two of the more fun to watch teams in the USL, like, I would have called you a liar. I think that the Legion, and I wrote about the defensive reinvention last week, and you hit the nail on the head again. Like, getting Pasher, doing Pasher things throughout that second half was unreal to watch. It felt like a real team offensive performance as well against El Paso. And an El Paso team that struggles defensively, to be sure, in a way that Indy simply won't. But it feels meaningful enough that I think the Legion come out strong, disrupt what Indy wants to do, and get a point out of this one. So go and draw.
I have Indy 11 winning this one. I think that this is a really fascinating matchup as you have Birmingham, who have 4 clean sheets on the season, going up against one of the more high-scoring teams within the league. Indy 11 have 22% conversion rate on this one. If you're actually looking back on Birmingham when they play games on Sunday, they haven't lost a game that they've played on a Sunday back on September 24th, 2023. So they're fairly successful when you kind of disrupt your opponents to play on a match that would either give them a little bit longer rest or would prevent them to have a usual week the following week. But I don't know. I think Indy 11 has just been on a very great run of form that it's going to continue.
We went on the Lord's Day. Everybody knows that. Man, this Birmingham team, I've posted about it so many times. I cannot get over the switch of what Jake Roof has done for this team. And I've been on the boat of Jake Roof needs to start. I couldn't figure out where. I was like, he either needs to be a center back or a right back because this team always looks better when he's on the pitch. Turns out it was CDM playing a true 6 and, really letting Enzo Martinez do what he does. It's fixed a lot of the defensive issues and let the offensive flow a lot more. That said, I don't know how things are going to go. Legion only had a 16-man roster out in El Paso, and if they don't have the more guns on the bench, if they have to fully go for it, or if they need to go defensive, we'll see how many people they even have available to them. There's also just a part of me that just says that the Indy 11 are just on fire. And until somebody puts them out, I'm not picking anybody against them. I'm going to take the Indy 11. Next up, Rhode Island, who cannot stop drawing. They physically can't stop.
It's like
Going
art
against-
school.
God dang it. Going against Detroit, who are kind of broken right now. John, do you, no matter what you do, if you pick someone to win this game, like Rhode Island's broken out of their curse, but do you think that Detroit can get the win?
I've got Rhode Island getting a win in this one. Rhode Island, the team with the least wins in the USL right now, like less than Miami. There's something about their attack that I think is going to click against Detroit. And on the slide, like they just lost Jack Panayiotou today. He got recalled on loan by New England. That's a big hit. At the same time, if it forces them to say, okay, cool, JJ Williams and Albert Dickwell, you're doing your thing as a combo up top. That's kind of what you wanted to see. That's going to cause so many issues for Carroll, for probably James Murphy in the number 6 spot, trying to defend against what you're getting from that pair. I think Rhode Island has been so unlucky for most of the year as well. Like they've played a very strong brand of soccer. They've deserved more results than they've got. They're hitting Detroit at the right time to get 3 points.
I mean, this might be, I'd have to go back through and check, but this could potentially be one of the longest streaks that an expansion team has ever had to just wait to get their first win. And it would be quite the time to pick up their first results or at home or their first win in the league that they've still somehow, despite having fewer wins than Miami this season, are still above Miami in the table, and a win could actually take them above the playoff line. That being said, I would certainly bet under 2.5 goals for this one, but I'm going to take another draw in this result.
And if this is the first time you've listened to the USL show, or I haven't explained this recently, I don't pick draws. I refuse to pick draws. For me, it's just a game that I think is very fun. Until Rhode Island wins, I just can't pick them to win. John, you talk about how snake bitten they've been defensively. To people who like the Premier League, it almost feels like those weird Brighton teams where it's like, but their offense looks so good, but they were always winning. They were always losing matches 1-0. And it's like, well, maybe like until the goals flood in, like I just can't trust them to score it. Like they look so good, and I really believe in the Rhode Island project, but until it happens, I just can't believe in it. It's probably going to be a draw, but I'm taking
Graham Potter vibes at Brighton.
Yeah.
Kano, Graham Potter, Smith.
Kano's going to Chelsea.
Last but not least for this week, we have Northern Colorado, whom we've talked about a lot, taking on. Oh wait, do I have this one right? Taking on Knox. I have it as Knoxville, but I thought they were playing. I thought Knoxville was playing Lexington. What week?
Oh yeah,
we got the pick fact check here.
Oh yeah, it's sorry, Northern Colorado against Fuego.
Yeah, NoCo Fuego or Knox Lexington. Take your pick. Did you do this again with the Jägermeister Cup games?
I think I might have.
That's so funny.
Way to go, me.
Jägermeister's.
No.
I know someone who needs to get sent a bottle for. Yeah.
Yeah. No. I did it again. Where the issue is, okay, this is a real question that I should know the answer to. Jägermeister does not count towards regular season results, right?
No, it does not. It's a separate competition, technically. Yeah.
Okay. Because I thought there was for a while that they were like, it counts as well. Like if you get points here, you get points at. Anyway. Okay. So let's just go ahead and do Knoxville versus Lexington. Lexington, whom they're bad. Like, unless they're
playing Chattanooga or Fuego, they're bad.
It's not good. And Knoxville started hot. It cooled off a good bit. But Lexington has a real problem going on right now unless they're, taking a shot at glory. what do you see happening here? Can Lexington figure it out in the league, or is Knoxville just going to beat the brakes off them like Madison did?
I mean, I think the thing about Lexington is, despite the fact that they gave up 3 goals to Chattanooga 2 weeks ago, like there was so much to appreciate about that performance from them, whether it came in the high press, whether it came in the use of Ates Diouf on the left wing. That felt like a game that was cathartic and they were really making progress. And then Madison came in and just gave them the business in every single way. And it felt like we were back to square one with the same issues in build, with this inability to really move without the ball with any sense of intention. Knoxville, on the other hand, has been so inconsistent. Like they started well. It was with that really physical back three. They experimented a bit. They're out at sea. This is a game that I think is ultimately going to go Knoxville's way, just because I trust them more. But yeah. Yeah, and Nicholas Murray confirming, as we thought, that separate competitions. So Kaylor is just bad at finding games on the right day.
Yeah, pretty much. I just refuse to look at dates. That's part of my issue.
Where do you, out of curiosity, I know
Bot Mob. I just don't think about it.
Okay.
I have Jägermeister saved as a favorited competition. I just forget to look there.
They were slow to add the cup early in the season. Yeah, nearly missed the start of it.
Yeah, I do think it is interesting within the group stuff that Lexington is atop their group right now, and we've spoken about that previously on the show. Like Kaylor, you had mentioned that if you're just watching the league, you'd be surprised to see Northern Colorado beating Omaha, but you also see a Northern Colorado team who's leading their group stage. Although I do think this is going to be finally the week where Lexington's grasp atop that group of the Jägermeister Cup is going to slip away from them, and I have Lexington winning this one.
Okay. I just don't believe in Lexington whatsoever. And against Madison, whom, I repeat it every week. I just think that Madison is just built to win championship this year. Don't get me wrong. Omaha is fantastic. Greenville's fantastic. NoCo's figured it out. Like, there's a lot to be excited about in League One. But Lexington's been brutal to watch despite what they have available to them. I can't pick them. I just can't do it. In my good conscience, I can't do it. I'm taking Knoxville.
Fair.
Yeah. Cool. Any final USL thoughts for the week?
I have this feeling that very few people watched that New Mexico Monterrey game on Golazo. What you missed out on was the fact that it was, I think they called it Pups at the Park night.
Yes.
You had so much barking on the stream. It was iconic. Every time you got any cheers from the Monterrey crowd, it would be accompanied by just insane amounts of dog barking. Like a great game, by the way, with like wonderful player of the week performance from Anthony Siaha in goal. But what I'm going to remember is just like stray barks.
I mean, it halted the winless skip for Monterey Bay. They
pause at the pitch. There we go.
Invite the dogs back every week.
Love it.
Farm. I totally forgot about Farm Animal Night at the Austin Bowl. That was one of the funniest things. Yeah, no, that was a funny one. I had no idea what was happening because most of the time I'm watching stuff without audio on, and I'm just trying to watch a lot of things. And for some reason, my audio came on, and it was just so much barking. I thought I had another tab on. So I spent time looking for whatever tab I had turned on with the barking. I was like, I don't know what I could be listening to with that. So good. Yeah, that was fun. I really enjoyed watching all of the League 2 and W League stuff. This week was, like we mentioned, the busiest week in USL history. And I watched a lot of League 2, W League on my flight home today. And it was just fun. It's good stuff. this is also my public service announcement. For the love of God, clubs, please just invest in just basic streaming. Thank you, Nicholas. Please just invest in just your cell phone camera, anything, so we can watch things. Because there's basically, for people who don't know, I watch one match in W League and League 2 from each division. Like, I go to each division and I watch one match so I can get an idea of each team. So if I have to talk about it, I can. And there's so many teams that don't have a stream. And it's like the results on League 2 and W League said this was an absolute banger of a game and no one will ever see it. Just buy a phone charger and just stream the game or something, for the love of what all is holy. Just do us the service. Just really had to get that one off my chest. Any other final thoughts?
Yeah, while we're on the W League, going to give a quick shout out to Greenville, Liberty, and Indy 11W alum Hal Hirschfeld, who's having a killer year in the NWSL and just got a call up for the U.S. women. So shows you what the pipeline can be from the USL.
I think maybe it was for the U.S. women's national team, or not the women's, but the U19. I think there were 4 or 5 ladies from the W League who were starting in that one, or maybe it was the proper. But I know there's been a lot of W League representation in this one. Yeah, I got it. For the U20, Elise Evans, Gianna Riley, Ali Centaur, and Leah Kalenki. There we go. Including Alice Centaur, who was the captain on the night, all getting starts, former W League players. So the pipeline's real. And if there's a W League team or League 2 team around you, go watch, because I promise you that the talent is so much better than you realize.
Yeah.
Final thoughts for the night, Ryan.
Yeah,
Ryan's about to steal my thing, by the way. I already know it.
No, I'll let you have that one. I was actually going to hype up the soccer tournament that starts in Cary tomorrow. It was a lot of fun to just kind of watch that 7-on-7 tournament online. And I think it was Maurer online who posted that if you search just for TST on Google, the first thing that pops up is the Satanic Temple and not the soccer tournament. So that's incredibly just hilarious. But yeah, it's one of those just kind of sicko watching that's just kind of a blast. And Sergio Aguero will be there.
Should we talk Dwyer real quick, Gaylor?
Yeah, let's talk Dwyer. Let me pull it up. But basically, Jonathan Como from Roots Soccer blog, which if you're not following Jonathan, like, you desperately need to, because he is the best of the best. I gotta find the tweet.
So we start to just set the context, like,
okay,
Nani,
so
the very famous player. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so like Nani has one of his TST teams, and Dom Dwyer was announced as one of the players. And Dom Dwyer famously signed for Oakland Roots, and like has not appeared a single time. I don't think he's even been featured in an 18 yet. And so when
he's
he
been
gets
on the bench a handful of times, but
has he?
Yeah.
Okay. He gets announced for this TST roster, and I'm just like, what's going on here? Like, Oakland's paying this dude a pretty penny for him to go play for Nani and Cary, North Carolina. Like, what if he gets hurt? Like, this feels awful. So Jonathan Como comes out, says, and I quote, hearing from the club that Dom Dwyer is not competing with TST with Nani FC, and their roster graphic is incorrect. He's still in Oakland training, is set to join and was set to join Nani before signing with the Roots. As for when he'll see him, he said he's just heard, quote unquote, soon, and that training is going really well. I don't want to like throw like Oakland under the bus and be like, come on guys, get it together. But when Nani's when the thing comes out and Dom Dwyer's on the roster, I feel like somebody from Oakland or Dom Dwyer or Nani should have said, no, he's playing with the club that he just signed with. Sorry to get your hopes up. Because I really thought they were paying him all this money just to go play 7v7. And I was getting kind of ready for it.
I just love the idea that also the roster was like, I don't know, 15 Portuguese guys and Dom Dwyer. Like, that was very odd to begin with, but like the whole thing is just very funny. Obviously a miscommunication at the end of the day. One that's made worse by the fact that like Dwyer hasn't seen the pitch yet, but I'm hoping this ends up being a good signing for Oakland, even though it's been nothing but weird so far.
I was kind of hoping that it would end up being like a Green Day, like Billy Joe Armstrong, where they've had like Oakland Roots stuff. Like he's playing with Nani FC, but he's wearing like Oakland Roots like socks or just something the entire time. I was hoping just for cameos and be like, what's going on? Nicholas Murray puts in there, check out their story on the USL Championship and League One alums who are playing in TST. Unbiasedly really rooting for just North Carolina, and I think it's the Natty FC, which are just comprised of basically purely USL guys. If you want to relive some names, there are some amazing ones in there. They're just a ton of fun. My favorite one that came up last year and it's come up again this year, Nazmi Abadwe, just makes my soul happy to see his name circulating again. That one's always a fun one. That FC Cincinnati team, the Natty FC, I think they have Chado Cheosinko playing with them on top of just your favorite players from USL past. It's just a blast, but there's a ton of fun names and a ton of fun players that are going to be there. So check that out.
While we're in the Nicholas Murray plug section, I do have to shout out the piece he had with Brad Ring, one of my absolute favorite players, a true Indy 11 legend, who's doing wonderful work in the mental health space, which so important. So go check that out. To hear from one, Nicholas, and two, one of the best people involved in the American game.
And while we're fluffing up Nicholas Murray, why aren't you subscribed to the Rondo yet? What's wrong with you?
Yeah, obviously.
Like, the Rondo is must read for me. Also, the meme of the week. Normally what happens is I get the email, I scroll to the meme of the week, laugh, and then scroll back up to actually read it. I don't know if that's what you want from me, Nicholas, but that's what I do.
That's chaotic.
I just need to get the little dopamine boost before I read all the rest of it. You know, I'm a proper just like
it's you when you're trying to read a book. You have to like look away at your phone to see a meme every 2 pages to keep going.
Man, I can't. This is so bad. I really can't think of the last time I sat down and just read a book for fun.
That's a lot of people are in your shoes in that regard.
I love a good audiobook, but I just can't think of the last time I sat down and just read a book. Anyway, John, what do you have going on, man?
Yeah, we're circling back to this. Well, I thought Ryan was going to steal my thunder with The Acolyte, which is coming to Disney Plus. We are back on the Star Wars train. I think the episode is actually out like right now. So
the first two.
Yep, I'm going to be up irresponsibly late tonight. It's kind of a reset. Like, it's not connected to really anything else we've seen. It's kind of like a detective murder story from what I've been hearing and finding out. So excited to see what gives with it all. It's going to be fun.
Beautiful. For me, I just finished fun like travel. I'm absolutely exhausted.
By the way, shout out to Kaylor, who was, I think, in Wisconsin earlier today, if I have that right.
I was in Minneapolis. Yeah.
Okay.
Earlier
That's
today.
even worse. Yeah. Distance wise, no disrespect, Minnesota.
Sorry, Minnesota. Yeah, no, like I was flew up to Chicago to see like one of my good friends and his girlfriend. Went to go watch the Cubs, drove out to Milwaukee to watch the Brewers, and then we drove all the way to Minneapolis that night and then today we flew back from Minneapolis to Baltimore to back to Birmingham. Absolute blast. I am a absolute sucker for just baseball. I love baseball. I was really hoping that Phil was going to be on here, not for me to talk trash about El Paso. It was just going to be for me and Ryan to gang up on him about the Cubs. But like Wrigley was cool. If you haven't been to Wrigley, here's my hot take. Wrigley Field, not my favorite. Wrigleyville, if you want to go just for Wrigleyville, that's why you go, in my humble opinion. That does not matter. And Miller Park, when did they change it to American Family? That's weird. It's still Miller Park in my heart. Doesn't look great on TV. Absolutely stunning in person. It is a stunning ballpark that I think people would have to see, because on TV it looks horrid, but in person is a beautiful place. But yeah, so flew back in. I'm absolutely exhausted. So I am ready to go to bed, but yeah, it was a fun experience, and the Midwest is not as flat as people told me it was going to be. Everybody said it was just going to be like just super flat. I thought it was going to be like a leveler's dream. There was hills and trees and stuff everywhere. I don't know what the hate's about. I don't get it.
As a native Hoosier, that's a very funny sentence.
I just thought that it was like just flat desert area with like wheat and corn, and like you just couldn't, like you could see from miles and miles. Like there were hills and trees everywhere. I think people blow it out of proportion.
Yeah, you're right about that.
I don't know. That's a side tangent. But yeah, thank you all so much for listening. Do y'all have anything else? Cool. Hey, yeah, check out Goals TV. Lots and lots of good stuff going on there. Check out our Patreon. It's in the description. If you want to support us, some good, like just some merch coming out soon. So if you want to support us to get out to, if you want to support us to get out to Oakland, and hey, totally let us, show up CBS, show them what a real broadcast looks like. Get us out there. Let's have a great time. And thank you so much for listening. And even though he was not here, here's Alan's voice.
Thank you for watching another episode of the USL Show. The USL Show is now proudly part of the Protagonist podcast family. Please go to protagonistsoccer.com to check out more work. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see everyone again next time.